Down the Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing rubber frauds.
Down the Biscayne.
Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome to the post-game show on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel, 5 on the Floor Live. This will also go on the podcast feed if you find us on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Of course, make sure you like, subscribe, turn the notifications on here. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link will be right here in the description. Miami Heat lose to the Milwaukee Bucks 116-111, a game that was in their grasp. We've said this over and over and over this year. This was not an easy assignment for them tonight. I thought in pockets of the game, they played really, really well. But they end up with nothing to show for it. And we will get to all these players in our usual segments. But even though they got 40 points from Tyler Herro, this is the third time he's scored 40 this year. They haven't won any of them. Scored 40 points tonight on 12 of 27 shooting, but he did have 7 rebounds and 11 assists. Bam, 24 points. 7 rebounds, another strong game. Remember when he couldn't score 20? He's now done that in 7 of the last 9. 24 points, 7 rebounds on 10 of 16 shooting. Andrew Wiggins, not especially efficient. He was 7 of 20, but he did end up with 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. So you get 84 points from your top 3 players, and you lose. And you lose in large part because some of these rotations, particularly at the start of the fourth quarter, are unsustainable. We've been saying this all year. Erik Spoelstra he only went to 8 tonight in the first half. Then he had to go 1 deeper because he had to play Kyle Anderson in the second half because Niko Jovic broke the second metacarpal in his hand. We will get more updates on that. Does not sound promising to me. Steph Curry broke the metacarpal in the 1920 season. He missed 3 months. So we'll see how this is. Everybody's different. The injury may be slightly different. I don't know, but that does not sound good. It says got to play Jovic more. I don't know if you're going to be playing Jovic more. As we're getting to some of the comments, we'll put some of these things up. So they end up playing 9 guys. But, Brady, I'll go to you on this before we get to the player of the game or anything like this. On a night that Giannis only played 32 minutes, he was only supposed to play 24, and he had 23, 16, and 7. They lost this game when they lost the non-Giannis minutes. They at the start of the fourth quarter, in my view, and once again – causation is not correlation. Terry Rozier was on the court again.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I mean, I said it the other day where I felt like Miami has their 7 guys at the top of the rotation right now that they're going to stick to, and Terry Rozier was kind of the 8th tonight, where he's the guy on the outside, and they're cutting his minutes. I mean, that's the bright side here is that they're not getting 30-minute Terry Rozier. It's just a little bit less, but those minutes have they're so replaceable is the key word there. Like you go to some of if you're not going to get good shooting or good anything in those minutes, you go to Haywood defensively, you go to Burks to try to get a spark shooting wise. There's just there's other directions you can go here. So I'm not going to put it all on Terry, but it was more so those minutes because especially in the second half when Jovic got hurt, Kyle Anderson is probably going to get a good portion of Jovic's minutes. And you're talking about Terry not shooting well. Kyle Anderson's not a shooter. Bam is, in foul trouble. Like these lineups was just not favorable. Like that's why the plus minus kind of tells you the story of the game more than ever in this one because Tyler was a +7. Bam and Wiggins were -16s and -15s, and it's not to put the game on those two because they actually played pretty well. But it's the lineups they were in. Like they just didn't have enough serviceable offense in those lineups because they were surrounded with the guys that I just mentioned. So. I don't really know. I just feel like we talked for so long about the depth of this team. It just feels like right now, like they have guys in their depth that they're not going to, but then the 8th or 9th guys they are squeezing in just feel like probably aren't the best options. Like, so it's just a weird scenario. I felt like for a good portion of this game, honestly, they had pretty good offensive stretches. Like Tyler, Bam, and Wiggins were carrying pretty much all the offense there. But it really does come down to the fact that like they ended up shooting 29% from 3, 9 of 31. They were attacking really well to start this game. They were, getting to the basket, a lot of stuff in the paint. But it's not, you can't do that. The only way you can do that is if you set up the threes later. Like it's to set up the game a little bit later, and they just don't have the shooting right now. I was kind of pointing at it when we were talking about the rotation, Ethan, where it's like they're leaning into defense, but the shooting's the collateral. They don't have like the ability to put up 44 threes and shoot 42%. It just seems like right now.
Well, the difference, if you look at it, Milwaukee made 14 threes and the Heat made 9. I mean, that's a lot of where this game was. I mean, on a night that Tyler Herro was a free throw merchant. And you know what? Let's roll it, Greg, and we'll talk about this here. Player of the night.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
The most impactful player ultimately, Greg, was Giannis, as tends to be the case. But let's talk about Tyler specifically here, because there was a narrative that I kind of played a role in a couple of years ago, that the more that he scored, the worse it was for them. To me, this is not that anymore. Like, they have nowhere else to go.
Of course.
Other than him. And he made, I mean, he had the one, basically the logo jumper tonight. But he also forces some things, and then sometimes it's like, no, yes. With the current state of their team, does he need to just keep doing this? I mean, you just lean into it as much as possible, because there really is not any scoring you're going to get from anywhere else?
Oh, hell yes. And especially, I mean, if he can go 13 of 14 from the line, and I wouldn't expect him to necessarily maybe be that, like that, not necessarily efficient from the line. He can shoot it that well, but can he get to the line 14 times? We shall see. But this is the rest of this season. For me, Tyler and Bam are showing what parts of the leadership roles they can take on, and then you're ultimately trying to figure out what you can build around them. You need to lean into Tyler as much as possible. There's not a lot of other options to score. Terry was brought here to be one of those other options, and that's not going to work, obviously. So we're in a situation where now with Niko potentially going down in terms of creating, in terms of getting easy buckets for others, this is crazy to say, y'all. He outplayed Damian Lillard tonight, ultimately, one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Now, it didn't translate into a victory. I have my questions about when they're going to find a stretch of basketball that they can rely upon to get some victories and make sure that they don't fall into a weird part of this play-in scenario where they're on the road a lot more than they're at home. Because, it's quick in the Eastern Conference now. And now with Niko going down, we'll see. It really surprised me how much Jaquez and Highsmith are frozen out of the lineup. But at this point, this is about Bam finding his stretch again. And Tyler, yes, you lean into him as much as possible. He's getting all-star calls, so that's fun. It just sucks that tonight, which could have been a big game for them in the standings and also for momentum, it ultimately didn't go their way. I mean, it just and it wasn't the offense. To me, this was some just defensive woes that continue to plague them, and these stretches in the fourth quarter where they lose leads.
We talk about the bench tonight. So Jovic had 7 points and was a plus 10 in 15 first half minutes, and then was hurt. And we don't know when we're going to see him again. And they got a total of 5 points from other players off the bench. 3 from Duncan, who was bad tonight. No way around this. Like, he just was not good. Ended up with 4 fouls. He ended up with 4 fouls and 1 made field goal. And then we've talked about Terry. I mean, 10 minutes, -7, 0 for 4 from the floor, 0 for 2 from 3. he's a rhythm player. He's not going to get his rhythm playing these kind of minutes, so just don't play him. That's where I'm at. Just don't play him. And we've talked, play Burks, play Larson, play Jaquez, play Highsmith, play Josh Christopher, play anybody at this stage. Like, really, just play anybody. Play Isaiah Stevens. This at this point, you're not going to get anything positive from him in these kind of minutes. He needs minutes. He needs minutes to be able to get into a rhythm, and him getting minutes kills your entire chance to win. So there's no way around it other than just shelving him completely. But Brady, we've talked about Bam playing better of late. Wiggins, I thought was pretty decent in one-on-one situations tonight. He wasn't all that efficient. I thought the defense was pretty good. But as you look at Ware tonight, this is something I want to focus on as well. I remember when Giannis came in the league, he was skinnier than Ware is now. Okay. Obviously, Giannis doesn't look like Giannis used to look. Okay. In any way, I'm not saying Ware's going to become that. But what I saw tonight was like how far, I mean, again, Giannis is going to dominate most guys he plays against. But Ware was completely overmatched every time he was matched up with him. How far away do you think we are from seeing a situation where Ware can play against the more physical front court players in the league?
I mean, that type of transition is probably going to be his third season. I mean, I wouldn't want to put it all in this offseason. It's probably going to take 2 off seasons like to fully get down to it. But I mean, I think he's going to obviously get in the gym in the offseason. I think that stuff's going to help more so, as you mentioned, defensively, like offensively. I thought he was actually pretty decent tonight on the roll and just kind of on the lob thread and the roll and stuff. But even like the finishing, you could see like where he has opportunities. I'm not saying like the lobs are always perfect, because they're absolutely not. But there's opportunities where he goes up to go and try and finish, and it'll roll out or something because he just kind of trying to toss it in like Blake Griffin used to.
Right.
It should be like just DeAndre Jordan going over the top and throwing it down, where it's like, I just think that stuff's going to help a little by little, but more so it is defensively. It's like Brook Lopez is obviously his main matchup there, and he's playing more perimeter game. But even Brook Lopez has size if he wants to get on the block, where if they make an adjustment, in the playoff series, let's say hypothetically and moving forward, that's something to exploit. So 100%, I think that's just something to look at in general. To pivot off, because I know you were talking about Tyler before. I thought this was impressive from him. Just to talk positively for a second, because the adjustment with the free throw line stuff really is something to talk about, because that's an insane adjustment where he's picked up over the last few weeks. He used to always talk about, I want to get to the line more. And he did that, I think it was last season at the beginning, where he kept trying to drive and get to the basket. He wasn't getting the calls. He's not going to get the calls down there. He's not going to get the calls when you're a shooter and you play the perimeter. You're not just going to start driving and getting foul calls. You know the way you get foul calls? Playing your game, and that little rip through, that little sweep through move he's figured out, where players are constantly reaching when he's dribbling through the lane, and he's turned that into constant free throw attempts. That is a huge adjustment. Like, that changes a ton. And just the overplaying that we're seeing in general. Like, he's finding ways to get to the free throw line from that free throw line extended. Like, he's not getting to those calls in the lane. So that's interesting in itself. But like I said, I thought Bam has looked more comfortable and confident with the mid-range. I thought Wiggins, for majority of the game, played well in that mid-post. I love the mid-post reps for him. I just thought late he kind of settled on a few of them. Like, there was some bad misses there late where they kind of went to him. AJ Green was guarding him, and he just had some forced ones where he wasn't even using trying to back him down. He was just trying to get to that little floater instead of trying to draw contact and not to compare it to the other 22. But that was kind of the difference that you would get in those parts of the game, where he would kind of draw the game down, slow it down, get to the free throw line and play physical, where now you're just trying to get into a shot-making battle against this Milwaukee Bucks team. And that it didn't feel like that was going to be a positive manner for Miami. So there was just a lot of things going against them in this one.
I mean, you talk about the adjustment that Herro's making. In what season are we now? He was drafted in 19. It takes a long time. I mean, to get to a certain level, in terms of improving all parts of your game. We're talking about guys like Ware and Jovic, who are very early on, but it is fascinating to me that as limited as they are right now on the bench, Jaime Jaquez can't get off of it.
Yeah.
And that tells you, because some of the defensive metrics on Jaime are not bad. I posted a stat on Off the Floor tonight about how he is one of the best defensive field goal percentages in the league. in terms of players he's guarding. That's according to the Second Spectrum. And yet he cannot get on the floor. And yet Terry Rozier is detonating games on a nightly basis and is still getting double-digit minutes. I know that it's come way down, but it's still getting double-digit minutes. That tells you everything about where he is right now. But I want to use the play of the day to do something a little different today. Let's roll that. And we're actually going to talk about the play that might end up being the most significant of the entire game going forward.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-ray of the play of the day.
Well, speaking of X-rays, one came back after halftime that Niko Jovic has broken metacarpal in a second metacarpal in his hand. Left hand, I believe. I didn't see it. I saw him knock knees. Right? We saw that. He limped a little bit. I didn't see it happen. A couple of our folks we were following with us on playback noticed it. And I'm just wondering where they go from here, because it's clear that he's going to miss time. And there are options, but I don't think any of them are great options. So tonight, like, the easiest thing was to plug and play Kyle Anderson. You didn't get out of his minutes what you got the other night. You're not going to Kevin Love, most likely. It feels like that ship has sailed, right? Okay, so the other options are, for now, until you look at the buyout market, if Nico's going to be out for any length of time, which appears would be the case, it's Jaquez, maybe. It's Highsmith, who has sort of weirdly fallen out of favor with Spo this year. What else would it be? Can he play Keshad
Those are the
Johnson?
options.
Can we try that?
I know. I think you hit on the options, and it's Jaquez now has an opportunity to figure out his season and make something of a year that ultimately has looked like just a big sophomore slump. I mean, as much as we've seen some guys miss a ton of time, like you mentioned Steph earlier, DeJounte Murray, Spencer Dinwiddie, they missed about 6 weeks for a similar injury. So it could not be season ending. We don't know yet. I think that Haywood Highsmith is going to get another shot here. Spo circles back to his trusted defensive guys. I also think, depending on it, if the losses continue to stack up, I really wanted this game tonight, because the Toronto game, you need to find these stretches where you can build on 2-3 victories in a row, start to get into a groove, and they didn't get that here. So at some point, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Keshad Johnson get out there. But for now, I think that you're going to see Jaquez get another opportunity at some point. And then Haywood Highsmith, he's going to go to his trusted guys.
Brady, here's the only problem. If he goes to Jaquez, there's going to be parts of the game they're playing really small, aren't there?
Kind of. I'm more so worried about the shooting. Like, I'm thinking about this bench lineups. Like, they're just not going to be as much as. So we think of Jovic trying to replace his ability as the size and the playmaking, but he's been shooting really well. Like, he's been a consistent spacer, and you've noticed the shift where defenses are not helping off him as much. It's done a lot for kind of the spacing in a lot of these lineups, where now I'm looking at it. I'm not saying this guy's going to replace him straight up, but I do think there's got to be a lean into Alec Burks. I just think they have to play him more. I think they need shooting on the floor, especially with the fact that they're leaning into the defense of Mitchell and Wiggins and these others. Now, with that said, I think it's a lot easier. You can play Kyle Anderson if you play Alec Burks, but that means you're bumping Terry out of the rotation. Now you can run a rotation. If you want to keep the starting lineup you're running, you run Duncan off the bench, you run Burks off the bench, you run Kyle Anderson off the bench, and then you could, pick whichever other guy you want to mix in, if it's Haywood, if it's Jaquez, whatever. That kind of feels like the 9-man rotation to me, at least for the time being. Like, it just feels like it's tough. I just don't know where the shooting's coming from other than Tyler right now. Duncan has kind of been an interesting case, and that's why I've been kind of the case of trying to move him into the starting lineup, and it's not because I've been a huge proponent of Davion Mitchell. I think he's been great in his role. But I'm interested to see what he looks like as an energizer off the bench. I think Duncan kind of unlocks a lot of the spacing issues with some of these lineups. You bump Terry out of the rotation, you put Davion in there, and then you run Davion and Alec Burks together. I just think it's a cleaner fit and rotation you could get to if you do put Duncan in starting lineup. I don't know. You're not going to get as much point of attack defense and moving screen calls. I understand, but you have to sacrifice something here. So I'm interested to see the way they go with the rotation. I agree. I think they could lean into Hawkes. It just feels like an easy opportunity. But I expect a lot of Kyle Anderson. I just think even though he didn't play well in this one, I just think they see an opportunity for a playmaking guy that they can put in the mid post and just that could be a quick trigger of their offense.
How would you rate Duncan's season, Greg? Because we talk about his importance all the time, but I don't feel like he's had a good year. Am I wrong?
No, he's C+ing himself through this season, and it sucks because to me, some of the attributes he showed last year and what this team could use specifically, you'd think he'd be having a better year, but I can't in good conscience say he's having anything better than, a solid B to a C+ type of season.
And we haven't talked about it much, but everything we talk about with Duncan is conceptual. It's like, well, he makes the offense flow better. He makes Bam more comfortable. But then I'm trying to think of impact Duncan games this year, and it feels like they're on one hand. And I didn't feel that way last year prior to the back injury. I felt like there were a lot of them. Maybe the impact is not always seen, but I don't think there's been as many as there have been.
He hasn't crossed up Wemby enough times.
No, he is not. Well, he's still here, right? This all started with his podcast with me or with us earlier this season. We'll get to defending the house. Let's get to defending the house now, and then we'll do something else to wrap.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
Brady, I'm going to have you defend something. I put you in this position from time to time, I think, but you won't say this is a tough question. So let me just throw this at you. Because this tweet comes in here. Miami Heat blown leads this season. This comes in from @WadeXFlash. Up 22, 11:35 left in the fourth quarter versus Orlando. Up 17, 7:45 left in the fourth quarter versus Sacramento. Up 16, 8:40 left, third quarter versus OKC. I mean, that one it's OKC. Up 15, 2:53 left in the third quarter against Phoenix. Up 13, 7:57 left in the third quarter versus New York. Up 11, 5:11 left, third quarter versus Milwaukee. Up 10, 3:45 left, third quarter versus Lakers. Up 8, 2:06 left, OT versus Detroit.
Make it stop.
What do you think? Can you defend Spo over this?
I know, definitely not. I think he has to be held accountable when you have this much of a trend going on. But there's another trend in the things you just said. There was every peak lead and where it ended up getting blown is pretty much around the same time mark of every game that you just mentioned. It's about midway to late third quarter. It's about when that bench unit comes in the second half. It's when probably Tyler's exiting and Bam's kind of getting a short rest, and that's when things have gone downhill. Not to continually blame the depth, but they're not getting much from that second unit right now. Like they're not getting. The defense is worse because they're as we mentioned, there's a lot of defense in the starting lineup, and the offense there's no shooting. So there's just been a collapse there. But I will say in Spo's case, I think there's been a case where I think we all know when the lead is just slipping. Like you can tell when it's all about to evaporate. And there's about probably an extra 3 to 4 possessions where he just kind of watches it happen, where it's like kind of inevitable, where the momentum shifted, where there's not a quicker, leash to pull, where it's a quicker timeout or it's okay, Bam's going right back in. It's like I'm going to go win this game. We've done this way too often. This has to stop. Tyler, Bam, get to the scores table now. That's probably the biggest thing I would say about Spo. And I mean, I guess the other case about Spo is those lineups that he's going to. I mean, the decisions factor into it, whether it's playing Terry, whether it's playing certain guys, that factors in as well. But I think more so than anything, if you're going to like put something on Spo, it's probably the fact that you have two young core pieces on this team that are leading this group. This team is not going anywhere in a long playoff run. This season is going to end in April. You could put them in a few extra, minutes early in a fourth quarter, like especially if you want to try to, gain traction at the end of the season. If you want to try to, find something to find a rhythm, to put something positive on this very down season. I just think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to, put a little bit more on your star. I mean, look, let me just say this. Look on the other side. Giannis is supposed to be on a 20-minute, minutes restriction. Mm-hmm. They see an opportunity to go win this game. That minutes restriction goes out the window. You play Giannis. You go win this game. And I think that's kind of has to be the mentality of Miami.
I'm 100% with you on all that. One of my huge pet peeves with coaches at the college or particularly the professional level is taking a player out, a core player, an experienced high IQ player out because of foul trouble. Drives me insane. Mm-hmm. You're literally doing it for the referees then. Like you are like the whole purpose is to have is again to protect the player from himself. Why are you protecting a guy who you say every year is the defensive player of the year? You don't need to protect that guy. Trust that guy. There's no reason. And then the other thing Brady said, and I'll finish this thought, but I want to get the other thing Brady said. That it is always 3 or 4 extra possessions. We feel it on playback. We're like, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
Like you feel the momentum switch. He has to be quicker with that stuff. It's happened over and over and over. I'm not saying it would have turned the result of all those games. Sometimes you're just playing a better team or your guys don't make shots. But it has happened over and over and over. We're like 3 possessions late, 7 points out the window. They lost the non-Giannis minutes 10-0. Was it 10-0 or 10-2 in that stretch? That was the game. Yeah. That was the game. Giannis was off the floor.
It can't happen.
Because here's the other thing. Maybe Doc doesn't have him blow through his minutes restriction if the Heat pull away during that period of time, right? Put Bam on the floor, have Tyler back on the floor, don't have Rozier in the game. You're coming off the All-Star break. These guys shouldn't be tired. They literally played one game, had 2 days off.
Tyler barely played in the All-Star game.
Yeah, right, exactly. He didn't even have to do anything there, okay? So, and Bam, what did Bam do during All-Star weekend? You need because honestly, if that doesn't happen, that would have 12-0. I think Alex saying he says it was 12-0, 10-2, whatever it was. If you at least break serve during that, maybe Doc doesn't decide to play Giannis 32, 33 minutes when he said he was going to play him 24. Mm-hmm. The game looks different. He's got to start going for wins by stopping the bleeding. And it's happened too many times this year. The other thing he needs to do is stop playing Terry Rozier entirely. Just stop.
It has to happen immediately because it coincides with some of those runs.
It does. It's always then. It's late third quarter, early fourth quarter. We know what the problem is. Okay, we have X-rayed the problem. It's clear, and it's got to stop. Look, I think the guy's a great coach. You guys know my feelings on him. It does not mean we can't be critical of certain things that have happened over and over and over and over and over this year. And it is 3 or 4 possessions late every single time. That to me is a bigger deal than who he's putting in other than Rozier. Who he's putting in the rotation in this particular situation. It's the feel for the game and the momentum of the game. And he used to be like more on top of that stuff than this year. And it just feels like a lot of that is just going. Mm-hmm. And it leads to another loss. So I think, I don't know, very frustrating because I think they did a lot of good things tonight. And to see them get 84 points from their new big 3 is very promising. I thought Davion Mitchell did a lot of the things that we like seeing from him. Not going to take a lot of shots, but that was when we can watch the game getting away and it's just happening over and over and over. It's just making this insanity is what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. He's not getting a different result with it. He's not. You got to go to win the game. Play your guys. Bam can play 40 minutes. Bam doesn't even have to carry defensively the way he used to. So, I don't know what the reason is at this stage.
Back-to-back tomorrow in Atlanta.
Same thing's going to happen. It's been happening over and over and over and over. All right. Anyway, thanks to Brady. Thanks to Greg. Almost got you out in time, Greg. Appreciate it. I was close. We'll be back with probably another podcast, maybe during the day. I'll do one. And then we've got the game tomorrow night in Atlanta. We're going to have our guy at Turtle Bass. Is going to be on scene in Atlanta.
Holding Spo accountable.
Holding him accountable and telling everybody he was right. Have a good one, everybody.